So, Rita and James, so much to talk about with the coronation, but let's start with this, the appalling decision by the ABC to use it as an attempt to kind of denigrate everything to do with our history, Rita.
Well, we heard from Stan Grant, I think a couple of weeks ago, where he said he felt betrayed by his network's coverage of the Queen's death. He was even upset about having to wear black, apparently. That was traumatic. So when they included him in this coronation, you got an idea of what road they were going to go down. But my gosh, I never thought they would go the way they did. I mean, that was just over the top, race-obsessed, grievous mongering, just completely divorced from reality, and to present that as also the viewpoint of migrant Australia.
Well, that was the most offensive, James. That character who looked like a surfer who'd wandered in from Manly, off the beach of Manly somewhere or other. He's actually the bloke who replaced Red Bandana guy.
Yes, so he's a former soccer player.
Yeah, so whatever he is. Anyway, he was full of vitriol. Craig someone or other.
Foster, yeah.
So, yeah, he was full of vitriol about, claiming that he and Stan Grant, as Rita was saying, claimed that Australia's never been successful. It's never been a successful multicultural nation. It's always been racist. It's always got genocide. I mean, these people are just literally insane.
Well, there's so many points here to make. I mean, number one, let's just stay on the Stan Grant thing for just a minute, because it really proves something that we've said a lot on this program, which is that the ABC is a staff-run collective. Because what did you have? You had Stan Grant essentially going out there and, having a huge tantrum in the media about the ABC's coverage of the Queen's funeral.
On ABC Radio.
And what is the response? Well, let's reward Stan by putting him front and center and letting him drive the editorial coverage of this incredibly historically significant event. Now, the rest of that panel, I mean, I started out watching on Sky, then my text started blowing up, with people saying, what is going on in the ABC? So under great sufferance, I flicked over.
You watched it so we didn't have to.
Exactly right. And the other thing that was amazing was that young woman who was utterly, historically illiterate. I mean, some of the things that she said.
She was suggesting, but young kids watching this, listening to that, would believe that the British came here and set up a colony and put Aborigines in prison.
This is exactly what I was going to say.
And that they've been in prison ever since. Therefore, we've got to abolish prisons because they are the penal colony. I mean, this is so devoid of sanity.
She said a lot more than that, Rowan.
She said a lot more of that, including about our farmers. I mean, all of it, like you said, so much of it historically illiterate, offensive, like stupidly offensive. Not offensive as in I'm triggered hearing it, offensive as in I think my IQ has just plummeted listening to this diatribe against this country. And you've got to really wonder at what point is there going to be some accountability? Because as you mentioned,
well, I'll tell you where that there is a charter, and they breached that charter. But more importantly, Rita, that accountability will come in one way, and that is if the people of this nation vote no to the Voice. Because what we saw loud and clear last night is that the Voice is a stalking horse for a republic. As far as that Craig bloke is concerned, they're part and parcel of the same thing. The Voice is the first step towards a republic, and it's all built around the idea that the British Commonwealth and the Australian Commonwealth are racist entities. So if you vote yes to the Voice, you're voting against the history of the Anzacs, against the history of everybody in this country who's done so much to make us a successful multicultural nation, including thousands and millions of immigrants who've come to this country to make it. If you vote yes to the Voice, you are voting against them. You are voting saying that this is a racist nation. Don't do it.
Rowan, the thing is, too, that this is baked into the Uluru Statement, which Anthony Albanese endorsed in the second sentence of his acceptance speech at the Canterbury RSL when he won the election last year. And that is about this thing called a Makarrata or truth-telling commission. And what that is, we saw this. This was the sneak preview here of what your kids and your grandkids are going to be taught in the schools, to the extent that they're not already being taught this already. This historical illiteracy, this division, this grievance mongering, this running down of, as Rita and Rowan have said, the most successful multicultural nation on earth. I mean, find me another place that has done it as well as Australia. I'll wait. And this is what they're going for. And it is all about, essentially a Marxist idea of dividing people up, saying, oh, you have less privilege here, so we need to, give you more power through this voice, but that's really about creating, as these things always do, a new elite, a new aristocracy that is going to go and run roughshod over parliamentary democracy.
And we got a taste of that truth-telling last night. That's what they mean by truth-telling. Not actual truth, it's their truth.
Yes.
It's feelings trumping facts truth. That's the sort of truth we're talking about, and we got hours of it last night. So if you want to see what the next step is going to be after we enshrine racial politics, racial privilege into the Constitution, then we've got truth-telling, then we have a treaty. This is all laid out. This isn't a theory. This isn't a supposition here. This is what is in the Uluru Statement. This is what Anthony Albanese has said he wants to enact. So the voice doesn't stop at the voice, and the voice, as we already know, presents all sorts of issues in itself as a standalone.
The voice is a cuddly, fuzzy little Trojan horse within which comes this absolute, when we saw it last night, the mask was ripped off, hatred of this country, hatred of all white people in this country, hatred of the history of this country, hatred of everyone from the Anzacs to the early settlers to the pioneers who built this country, whose bravery developed this country and made it a nation in which people like Stan Grant, people from all around the world,
Craig Foster,
people like Craig Foster were able to succeed and have great lives. I'm pretty certain you would not find, if Australia had been colonised by anyone other than the British, I don't think Stan Grant would be sitting in the position he's sitting in now. We will never know because of sliding doors.
But colonisation...
But no one else has colonised in such a benign and peaceful manner a nation as the British did of Australia.
But the colonisation is now presented as purely evil, as purely inherently wrong and a mistake. And you look around you and you... The lives you lead, the peaceful, prosperous nation that we have, prosperity, the opportunity, where do you think that came from?
Exactly.
Did you think we're going to remain
also,
undiscovered
James,
forever?
And we'll talk to Esther Kraku in a second about this, but up there at the coronation, now I know we can talk about how woke King Charles is or not, but at the coronation there you had a Hindu Prime Minister of Britain speaking. You had representatives from all the different religions. You had the most multicultural event. That is what the Commonwealth has created. That's what the British monarchy created. That's what Queen Elizabeth set out. That was her life's work. So for Stan Grant, Craig, whatever your name is, and the rest of you, seriously, take a running jump. How dare you insult Australia? How dare you insult our monarch? This is our monarch that you are disrespecting. We're expected to respect all cultures and all traditions in this country, as we should. Well, how about starting to respect the culture and history of those people whose parents, grandparents, great-great-grandparents built this country, fought for this country, defended this country. Let's start respecting them instead of sneering at them every 5 minutes.
And,
James.
it's funny, just thinking about that, because you talk about the ritual of the coronation, and there was so much sneering at the ABC, but also in the Fairfax Press and elsewhere, about this very complicated ritual that has been going on since 1066. The coronation, all the symbolisms that go, into what all of these different things mean, the pledges, the oaths, everything. And, this is just so terribly out of date and all of this. But I'll tell you what, these are the same people who will report you to HR if you don't,
if you question
completely, respectful during a welcome to country or something like that.
I mean, if you question, should an irrigation project be junked because it might disrupt an imaginary river serpent? If you question that, they're appalled. They're absolutely outraged that you could even have the gall to question that. But no. If you,
but the coronation
it was the religious elements that they particularly were upset with, because there was a lot of Christianity in this coronation.
It's a beautiful Anglican service. It is an absolutely, the language of the coronation, the language of the King James Bible, the language that is used. It is an absolutely, you don't have to be an Anglican to appreciate the ceremony and the ritual and the richness of the language and everything else that's there. And of course, it's, look at this out-of-date superstitious nonsense. What we need is, and then God knows what they'll replace it with.
But also that ceremony, all was built around the democracy that we love and we've all thrived with, because it was within that, the coronation service, they kept repeating that the king is there to serve, not to be served. This was repeated again and again and again, and there were religious overtones to it. But the key point is that in a constitutional monarchy such as ours, it is the role of the monarch to sit there and fill the head role, to deny power to others, to deny that sort of power, which is incredible power, to anybody else, so it sits there with a symbol who serves the people. That is what democracy is all about. You don't have that level of devotion to the single most important source of power, serving the common man, in any other system of governance anywhere in the world. And that is why it is so important.
But this is why also, there is such a distaste for this sort of constitutional monarchy, because it prevents the radical left from achieving their dreams. Because what they want to top-down control society, remake society, and this is the bulwark that stops that.
And this coronation was as much a celebration of Australian democracy and the success of 200 years that we have thrived as a nation. And don't anybody tell you differently. Now, we're going to go
Absolutely,
over...
we've thrived. Why do you think people risk their lives to come here? Why do you think there is
100%.
Literally millions who would love to come here? We're going to have, 700,000 around coming in just the next 2 years. We could have 10 times that of people who want to come here. They don't want to come to a failed nation. They want to come here because we are uniquely successful. We are uniquely a country that gives everybody a fair go. You come to this country with absolutely nothing and you've got a good work ethic, you've got some talent, you will make it. That's not true in most of the world.
And that
is never celebrated on the ABC. It's never even acknowledged. This country is talked down. This self-loathing is so toxic and cancerous. It's being taught to our kids in the schools. It's being reinforced by the likes of the ABC and other media. And it has to stop. And The Voice is just going to be another...
And just very quickly on that, Rita, what message do you think that it sends to... the Migration Review was just handed down this week, and one of the things it talks about is building a successful community of Australians. Great. But what do you think it teaches migrants and their kids when they come here and they see nothing but the country being talked down by the national broadcaster? The state national broadcaster does nothing but run this country and its history down. Do you think people come to this country thinking, oh, this is wonderful, and then they hear this? It's completely confusing.
Where do I get on the boat and go home?
For multiculturalism to work, you need to have some level of assimilation. And why would anybody assimilate into a broken society? Why would they want to be part of this country if you have the national broadcaster and so many others in positions of power doing nothing but trashing this place?
And what you saw there last night was this Craig bloke, the head of the Republican movement. We're going to have a Republican referendum at some point. I don't know, whatever his name is. Craig bloke sitting there, I'm sorry, and suggesting that immigrants to this country have suffered under the Crown. I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much that's what he said. Now, this is just garbage on steroids. That's what The Voice is about. That's what the Republic referendum about. They're joined at the hip. You would be crazy to indulge any of the nonsense that they're peddling in any shape or form.